Jones disappeared in November of 2000.
My 21st birthday was the last time that I hugged her.
The local woman who spent much of her life helping others overcome drug addiction vanished.
Jones's car was found 3 miles from her home. A few weeks after that discovery, Jones's husband called firefighters for help. Fire investigators determined the fire was arson. Jones's husband was questioned.
We know that whatever happened to her, it was covered up by that fire.
On a quiet Sunday morning in Jacksonville, Florida, just a few days before her 37th birthday, a mother of 6 left home for work but never clocked in. 3 days later, her SUV was found abandoned just a mile from home. Days after that, her house went up in flames, and she hasn't been seen since. This is the story of Geanna Maria Jones. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, fair use is permitted for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Before we get into the timeline, let's talk about who Geanna Jones was. Geanna Maria Jones was born on November 10, 1963, and spent most of her life in Jacksonville, Florida. Geanna stepped into motherhood early in life, welcoming her first daughter, Nikki, while still in her teens. Not long after, she gave birth to her second daughter, Cynthia, and by the age of 20, Geanna was raising 2 young girls, building a life for them with strength and determination, even after parting ways with their father.
Lovable, kind-hearted, and caring. That's how Geanna Jones' daughters remember their mom.
During the 1980s, Geanna faced a difficult chapter in her life as she struggled with addiction, a time her daughter Nikki still remembers clearly. The challenges lasted for several years and overlapped with Nikki's middle school years, leaving a mark on their family's story. But just before the 1990s, Geanna made a powerful decision. She chose to reclaim her life and fully committed to her recovery. And she didn't just get clean, she rebuilt everything. Her oldest daughter Nikki called it a big turnaround. Geanna found sobriety, stability, and a healthy sense of purpose. Geanna also found steady work as a system monitor for SecurityLink, a job that involved managing alarms and surveillance systems. It gave her structure, independence, and a way to support her family. Beyond her job, Geanna poured herself into helping others, guiding others through their recovery journeys. She took her sobriety seriously and saw it as something to be shared. Geanna also found new love. In 1990, she married Wilfred L. Jones, a man 16 years older than her, and their family grew. The couple had 4 more children throughout the decade, making Geanna a loving mother of 6. Not long before her disappearance, the family had moved into a new home on Big Sky Court in West Jacksonville. It was meant to be a fresh start, a chance to settle into a place of their own. And according to their daughters, Geanna was fully in her element. She made time for each of her kids, fully present, deeply involved, and finally at peace with the life she had fought to rebuild. On November 3rd, just 2 days before Geanna disappeared, she lovingly stopped by her oldest daughter Nikki's 21st birthday party. She didn't stay long, but she made sure to hug her daughter and wish her a happy birthday.
My 21st birthday was the last time that I hugged her. We looked into each other's eyes and she wished me a happy birthday.
That moment, that quick visit, would be the last time Nikki ever saw her mother again. It was early Sunday morning, November 5th, 2000, when Geanna left her home on Big Sky Court in West Jacksonville. According to her husband, Wilfred, she headed out around 4:30 a.m. for her usual shift at her security job, part of her normal morning routine. The day passed and everything seemed normal, at least at first. But as hours went on, Wilfred began to realize that something didn't feel right. Geanna hadn't called from work and he hadn't heard anything from her, not even the usual check-in. That wasn't like her. Still, he assumed she was probably running behind or maybe working a longer shift. But by the time the sun went down and Geanna still hadn't come home, Wilfred began to worry. By Monday morning on November 6th, Wilfred realized Geanna still hadn't returned home, and when he checked, he learned she hadn't shown up to work either. That raised real concern. Geanna hadn't called in, hadn't checked in with anyone, and no one seemed to know where she was. That's when Wilfred contacted the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to report his wife missing. That same day, Nikki, Geanna's oldest daughter, received a call from the police, also letting her know her mother was officially missing. missing. It was devastating to the entire family.
Glover received an unsuspected call.
Devastating. Like, my soul left my body.
Her mom, Geanna Jones, was missing.
At first, there were no signs of what had happened to Geanna. No calls, no updates, and no major movement in the search. Just a growing silence.
Confused at first, didn't know what was going on. It was unbelievable to me at that moment. Not sure what to believe. I did try calling her cell phone to see if I can reach her. No answer.
But everything changed 3 days later. On November 8th, police discovered Geanna's red Ford Expedition abandoned in the parking lot of an apartment complex on Ricker Road. It had been sitting there unnoticed all of this time.
Jones's car was found 3 miles from her home.
I couldn't believe it. They wouldn't let us get close. The detectives stated at the time her cell phone, her keys, and her purse, and what appeared to be bloodstains in the back passenger seat.
Inside the SUV were her purse, cell phone, and keys, just sitting there as if nothing had happened. But there was something that was alarming: bloodstains in the back seat and on the floorboard. Investigators believed the amount and placement of the blood pointed to foul play. It was no longer just a missing case. Whatever happened to Geanna had turned out violent, and it was clear she hadn't made it far from home. That same day, officers canvassed the area near the SUV and even searched a nearby retention pond, but there was no sign of her. Shortly after the discovery of her SUV, the focus of the investigation turned back to the family's home. Detectives expressed interest in searching the residence, but Wilfred refused to give them access. He didn't sign off on a voluntary search, and investigators were forced to wait for a warrant. But before police could secure a warrant, a fire suddenly broke out inside the home.
A few weeks after that discovery, Jones's husband called firefighters for help.
He told the police that he had fallen asleep smoking a cigarette and he was awakened by their fire alarm.
It happened during school hours on a weekday, while all 4 of Geanna and Wilfred's youngest children were at school. Wilfred was the only one there, and according to his statement, he had fallen asleep in the master bedroom with a lit cigarette, but investigators weren't convinced. The timing and circumstances raised immediate red flags. Investigators were left wondering if the fire had been set to destroy potential evidence inside the home.
Fire investigators determined the fire was arson, intentionally set. Jones's husband was questioned, but the fire marshal ruled there was not enough evidence.
Despite the arson ruling and his refusal to allow the initial home search, no charges were filed against Wilfred. The 4 youngest children, who had already lost their mother and now their home, were placed under protective supervision. For a short time, the children stayed with an aunt and uncle, and Nikki, Geanna's 21-year-old daughter, stepped up and even tried to gain custody of her younger siblings. But despite her determination, she was still young herself, and with an open investigation unfolding around them, the court ultimately placed the children in foster care. The family, once under one roof, had been completely torn apart. Eventually, police were able to search what was left of the home. In one of the rooms, investigators discovered traces of Geanna's blood, enough to suggest she had been injured inside the house. The exact locations weren't publicly disclosed, but the presence of blood inside the residence, along with what had already been found in her SUV, confirmed for detectives that foul play had occurred in more than one location. Although the fire was ruled arson and Wilfred had refused police access to the home beforehand, he eventually left the Jacksonville area, and no other suspects have been named. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office had said they believed Geanna was likely unalived, but without a body or definitive answers, her case remains cold.
We know that she's not alive. We know that whatever happened to her happened in that home, and it was covered up by that fire. We know that we have to keep pushing and keep fighting for our mom.
Over the years, Geanna's case has remained part of Jacksonville's cold case conversations. In 2020, Project Cold Case published a detailed article on her disappearance, and 2 years later, local news outlets featured her story again as part of a cold case series, helping reintroduce her name to the public. Geanna's daughters, especially Nikki, have also been vocal in sharing who Geanna was and how deeply her loss has impacted the family. Today, Geanna's case remains open. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and Crime Stoppers continue to accept tips, and her family hasn't given up. They still believe in finding answers and justice for Geanna. Before I share what I think about the case, I want to hear from you. Do you believe this was a random act, or do you believe someone close to Geanna was involved in her disappearance? Be honest and let me know in the comments. Also, be sure to like this video to help spread Geanna's story, and subscribe for more weekly cases like this. This case is just so unfair. Geanna didn't deserve what happened to her. She had already been through so much in life and was finally in a place where things were coming together. She was showing up for her kids, staying committed to her recovery, working, helping other people. She was doing everything right in my eyes. And I know people like to judge when someone has a past, especially when addiction is involved. But nothing about this feels like a woman who went back to old habits or put herself in danger. Geanna was focused. She was present, and she was loved. I try not to jump to harsh accusations, but the red flags in this case are hard to ignore. Her husband, Wilfred, refused to let police search the house. Then days later, there's this fire in one room where evidence might have been. To me, that's not just coincidence. He was the last person to see his wife. He said she left for work, but then her SUV shows up just a mile down the street from their home, abandoned. And the blood in the car, that tells us something violent happened. Honestly, I think whatever happened to Geanna started inside the home, and I think someone tried to cover it up with that fire. And what breaks my heart the most is that even with all that evidence, no one has been held accountable. Her body still hasn't been found. This isn't just a case to be forgotten. This is a woman who mattered, a mother, a mentor, a fighter for her community. And she deserved better than to vanish into silence, like her life didn't leave a mark, because it did, and it still does. If you know something, say something. It's been over 24 years, but it still matters, and her family still deserves answers. If you've never heard Geanna's story before now you have. Now you know her name. So don't let it stop here. Share it, talk about it. Keep Geanna's memory alive, because someone out there still knows the truth. This is the story of Geanna Maria Jones. Thank you for listening. If you believe in keeping these cases present and bringing awareness to each story, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It helps more people find these stories and helps keep them from being forgotten. And if you'd like to know when new videos go up, you can also tap the bell icon and YouTube will notify you when we post new videos here at Lavender Files.